Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 209 with Juliet Obodo. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. If you are new here, a warm welcome to you. This is a podcast for money coaches, wealth coaches, financial coaches, whether you've been doing it for a while or you're brand new, even just thinking about it. You found your tribe. This is your place to be. And this show is packed with lots and lots of helpful information for you. And this week, I typically am on my own, but I am joined by an amazing guest. Her name is Juliet Obodo. She is a master hypnotherapist and NLP, which stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, master practitioner and trainer. And she is on a mission to help treat, heal, and transform various traumas, as well as facilitate individual and corporate transformations through brain training and hypnosis. Y'all, I am so excited for you to tune into this episode because Juliet is sharing so many helpful tidbits that can really help you go that extra mile with your clients. I wanted Juliet to come on the show so badly because she is a wealth of knowledge. I've taken some of her trainings myself, and she is just doing so much for the world of coaching. So in this episode, we talk about hypnotherapy. Promise, if you're like, what the heck, Tess? Why are you talking to us about hypnosis? This is weird. Stick around. We're going to get into it. We're also talking about financial trauma, which is something that obviously is very important for us as money coaches, because if you find yourself working with a client and they're not quite getting it, or maybe they're not following through with some of the even potentially very basic things you're trying to get them to do, there could be something deeper there that you can help bring to light to your clients, or at the very least, you can understand potentially why your clients aren't actually changing or getting certain shifts in their work and the work that you're doing with them. And it could be because of that underlying trauma that's there. Now, Juliet walks us through some of the symptoms of financial trauma specifically and how it actually can manifest, what those underlying symptoms are, and then what that might look like, how we might kind of get into various forms of self-sabotage ourselves or our clients, and therefore that can help you understand or spot some trauma that might be happening with your clients. Juliet also specializes in ancestral trauma, which is actually a focus of her PhD in clinical psychology. And I really wanted to dig into ancestral trauma, generational trauma, which can be the same but is sometimes different, and she explains that, as well as racial trauma and how these other types of traumas can sometimes manifest into financial trauma, or even just manifest into actual financial struggles that our clients could be having, and the actual root cause of why they may or may not be doing the things that they should or should not be doing from a financial standpoint could be from those deeper other forms of trauma. So I really wanted to have this discussion with Juliet, who is so knowledgeable around these topics. And finally, one of the key questions that I really wanted to ask her was, how can coaches like us best support our clients on this deeper level, understanding that there might be maybe some deeper reasons why our clients aren't always able to do the work that they need to do in order to get the financial results that they hire us for. So with all that being said, this is going to be a great episode, and I just can't wait for you to dive in and have your ears just eat it all up, and also continue to follow and stalk Juliet, which you will see why you need to do that after we dig into the interview. So let's not hold back anymore. Without further ado, here is episode 209 with Juliet Obodo. Juliet, welcome to the Wander Wealthy podcast. It is such an honor and a pleasure to have you here on the show today. How are you doing this fine Thursday?
I'm doing well. Interesting week, but
Yes.
making it through. I think after 2020, I am very resilient. So
Good.
I'm
We're ready to be resilient. And that's what we need. We need a big dose of resiliency to keep going. Like 2020 is over, but what happened in 2020 is not over. So we still have
Yeah,
to keep going.
exactly.
Cool. We're diving right in. First, let's share with the people who you are, what you're all about. Could you please just in your own words tell us a little bit about your story and how that led you to what you do today? And maybe starting off with what do you do and who do you primarily work with? And then we'll dig into the story.
Sure. So I am a master hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner. I also train hypnotherapists, but I focus on high performers and corporate leaders in terms of helping them deal with any money blocks and specifically financial trauma and also burnout, because a combination of the two really does affect their either their career trajectory or their business success. So
Mm.
my programs are really geared to helping them train their brain so they're more resilient, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially.
Awesome. And how did you get into this work?
So my background is that I graduated with a psychology degree and a minor in biology, and I was actually going to become a psychiatrist, but I decided that med school was not for me, and I ended up in biological research, and from there it went into biotech, and then from biotech I actually went into sales tech.
Dang. You did
Yeah,
a little
so
bit of everything.
yeah. And so I spent the rest of my 20s in a sales tech career before I left corporate to start my business. And that was helping small business owners with their sales processes and also with funding their
Mhm.
businesses. And I noticed a lot of mindset issues. And then I was experiencing mindset issues. And then I ended up experiencing burnout,
Mm.
intense burnout. And it led me to hypnosis again, because I had hypnosis when I was in sales to help me with um, public speaking, to get rid of the fear of public speaking and negotiation processes, and also for relationships as well. So I knew hypnosis worked, but I forgot. And so when I rediscovered hypnosis and it helped me relieve the burnout that I was experiencing, I wanted to be able to provide it for my clients,
Mhm.
because I knew that I would have clients that had that hit a lot of just a short number of the checkpoints to get funding, but they were so focused and confident that eventually they did. And then would have clients that had all the requirements to get funding, but they didn't feel like they would get it. So they did it. So I knew mindset was key in terms of being able to get my clients the results that they needed and the funding that they needed. So I wanted to do an introductory hypnosis certification, but I ended up spending the year training and becoming a master certified hypnotherapist and trainer. So after I finished that year long training, I was essentially a different person, and the business that I had no longer um, resonated. So I just turned it into a full hypnosis practice.
Amazing. It's so crazy how, you can change so much in a year, and especially going through these like deeper inner work trainings, they can change you pretty quickly too. And so you just like evolve so rapidly. But we have to talk about hypnosis because I'm sure most of the people listening are like, what the heck, Tess? Who did you just bring on the show talking about hypnosis and that work and how this is going to apply to kind of our bigger topic around finances, money mindset, financial trauma. So, can you share with us like can you sell us on hypnosis? Just like your quick sales pitch.
So hypnosis, so all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. No one, it's those the stage performers and and what you see on television or what you've experienced, if you notice that the people that they bring on are usually people that are the life of the party already, or
Mhm.
people that do want that attention. So they're more likely to, because they would never pick someone that would be unlike, they wouldn't be able to hypnotize. So based on your body language or whatever, they would pick someone from the audience that's most likely to go with the flow, because you aren't able to be hypnotized unless you truly want to be.
Mhm.
So I can't brainwash you after one day.
Yeah.
But so the people that I work with, when they come to me, they're at about 50 to 60% of the way that they want to remove. I was like, for me, when I was experiencing burnout, I was so tired. I really wanted to a solution. So I was
Mhm.
ready for it. And so by the time you come to a hypnotherapist, you should be ready for change. And so once you're ready for change, we're able to find out what is blocking you from what you want to
Mhm.
be, do, or have. And then we identify under trance when this belief or this emotion was first experienced. And once we identify the root cause, we're able to release it,
Mhm.
releasing the block. And so hypnosis allows you to quiet your mind so you could really identify the root cause. I really identify the issue, because we're inundated with information constantly all day. So
Yeah.
a lot of the thoughts that you have, a lot of the feelings and things that you feel aren't necessarily true to you or for you. So hypnosis allows you to shed all of that and quiet the mind so you can really get to the root of your problem and then identify what you truly want and the
Mhm.
steps to get there.
Amazing. And the topic of this episode is really surrounding financial trauma, which is something that you know quite a lot about. And I'm sure you work with your clients a lot from even a hypnosis perspective. Some of those root causes of their money issues today are from financial trauma that, it might be present, but it could have also happened long ago. So I'd love to dive into this topic specifically. And can you just start off by sharing with us what financial trauma is and, the broadest context?
Yeah, so the symptoms may be like, if you get a phone call or you get a piece of, you're afraid to check your bills. It's a lot of avoidance when it
Mhm.
comes to money. Even now that you make a lot of money, don't like to check your bank account, because, or even when you go to the store, you still get that the butterflies in your stomach, because you're not sure if your card is going to be declined or accepted, or you, when you spend a large sum of money, you just feel like sick to your stomach, or you feel guilt or fear
Mhm.
surrounding just your relationship with money is full of strife. And when you think about where that comes from, a lot of times, especially for millennials, with your parents being with the market crash and the bigger recession in the
Mhm.
90s and the 2000s, a lot of the people that I work with, their parents lost their homes,
Mhm.
or they were always used to creditors calling the house. So now, even with their phones, they don't really answer unknown numbers, because they're like, who is it? A bill collector? And
Right.
and so that's how financial trauma is installed, is usually through your parents, and how you saw their relationship with money, and then you took that on now. And so now, even as a millennial, if you are doing well, you still have that fear around money. You still are not able to enjoy the fruits of your labor, because of that fear of losing it, or that fear that this is not going to be here to stay. And so and that really impacts you when you're making, because any fear-based decision is not going to be beneficial for the long run.
Mhm. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
so a lot of my clients, they start to make a lot of money, but then it's hard for them to save it, or they'll lose that money, often because it may be tied to worthiness as well. So when they come to me, usually we identify which area of the financial cycle that they have an issue with. Either you're having an issue with making money or receiving money or spending money or saving money, because it's all connected. And so we find which area of the cycle they have an issue and identify what belief is causing them to have this issue. And then we identify when that belief was a thought, what event or moment or experience caused them to have that belief, and lock it in.
And you can identify some things that have happened in the past. Do you do that through hypnosis then?
So first we do it with the interview process, because now, since I've seen so many clients, I'm able to kind of understand where the issue is, by asking a certain number of questions, and kind of ask them, like, when they get money, how do they feel? When they spend money, how do you feel? What's your basically your financial thermostat? Like, what are you used to having in your bank account? What are you used to having in your wallet? And once we identify where the issue is, then under trance, a light trance, we're able to uncover the memory of when that belief was first installed. For example, I have a client that just stayed at a job that they didn't like, because they felt like it was financial stability, and they just can't get rid of something that's so stable. Even though that they can get a job that makes them more money, they just could not let go. And so they would interview for jobs that would make them more money, but they didn't feel that they would get it, or that they were deserving of it. So they would self-sabotage. And so they would stick with this job. And when we had the interview and we went under trance, we were able to uncover a memory where they accidentally threw away 2 pennies in the trash. And their mom made them dig through the trash to get the 2 pennies.
Wow. And I think that's so interesting too, because I think when people hear trauma, I mean, of course, trauma can be like the trauma that you think when you hear the word, right? But trauma can also be these small, significant events that happen that, a lot of people listening might be like, well, I don't have financial trauma, but you might, because there might have been some big, significant event that happened for you, that today throwing away 2 pennies is like, whatever, but back when you were young, it could be a really traumatizing event. Do you find that a lot of the financial trauma are some of those like smaller things that we would deem insignificant, but actually were really significant for us in the time?
Yeah, because it's like a lot of it goes back to childhood. And where you're a child, you don't really have the capacity for nuance, like, oh, if this happens, it's only in this instance. No, it kind of just encompasses that area of your life. So whenever anything hits this parameter, or it hits these points in your mind, and it's a survival instinct as well, because
Right.
you need to be able to categorize the information that we receive. So anything that has for example, the tags, like you put tags on something. So anything that has those tags, subconsciously, you're going to categorize it as a certain thing, like, this is wrong, this is right, this is dangerous, this is safe. Another instance is I had a client, and you don't realize how everything is connected. So I have a client that has a business, and they know that they feel like they can get more clients with Facebook ads. But every time they would run Facebook ads and they weren't working, they would just stop it. They wouldn't even want to test it. They're just like, no. And so they would never pull the trigger on certain things that would help give them more exposure, and get them more traffic and clients. And so during the session, we identified an instance where the memory that came up was they fell, and a dog was basically in front of them, and kind of like was loose, and looked like it was going to bite them. So they just froze, because they learned in school, when you feel danger, you stop and you freeze. And this reaction was what they would do in business. Whenever they felt that threat or that danger, they would just stop the ads, stop posting, stop doing this, just stop.
Yeah. It's crazy how these like survival instincts that as you had mentioned, can also lead and manifest into self-sabotage in so many ways, especially for business owners when building a business is so uncomfortable naturally. Like there's just
Mhm.
uncomfortable aspects about it, or it's uncomfortable because as children and students, we learn how to kind of operate in one system, and then being an entrepreneur is an entirely different system. So it's just like a total change to your operating system. And you have to not only navigate this new system that you're going through, but you also have to navigate the fact that your lizard brain is telling you, like, stop, run away. This is bad. This is dangerous. Don't do this.
Exactly, exactly. And a lot of people don't realize that. So, for example, if they leave corporate, they think they might have better luck in business. But if your beliefs that were limiting you in your corporate career, they're going to carry over in your business because it's not really about changing your environment. It's not changing your method of traffic. It's not changing your niche. It's changing your belief related to your performance. If
Mm-hmm.
your belief related to your performance stays the same, then your performance and the results that you get from that performance are going to stay the same.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'd love to know, because I know that you're getting your PhD, is that right?
Yes.
And your focus is on ancestral trauma. And so I'd love to know if you see ancestral, and I'm not sure if that's the same or different from generational trauma, but ancestral trauma, generational trauma. I know you've talked a lot about racial trauma as well. How maybe you see those kind of manifest into financial problems too, and whether they have related root causes, or how a coach could best support their clients identifying maybe these other trauma points that also manifest into financial problems.
Yeah, and you could definitely see that some of my most of my clients have all three,
Hmm.
experience all three. So that's another benefit of hypnosis, is being able to get to the root causes of this trauma and be able to relieve it, essentially relieving the three types of trauma during a session.
Hmm.
Because for example, I had a client that was experiencing a lot of avoidant behavior in terms of not applying for certain jobs, not moving certain places, not doing certain things, and they felt or self-sabotaging opportunities to get certain things because they didn't feel worthy, and this worthiness was tied to their racial identity.
Hmm.
And even though they never really outwardly experienced racism or intense racism or blatant racism where they are, we were able to, during a session, identify that it was something that was their great grandmother experience because what happened to her brother, and that fear um, and avoided behavior was expressed, was so powerful that it changed genetics. And now that her granddaughter is now experiencing that gene expression, and it's coming up as fear of change, fear
Hmm.
of flying anywhere, fear of driving anywhere, fear of really any outside anything that's
Hmm.
different to what they're used to. And so it's very interesting um, how gene expression occurs at the psychological level, because that's
Hmm.
essentially what the intergenerational or ancestral trauma it's intergenerational ancestral trauma based on the history and how far back it goes, but essentially it's linked.
Hmm.
And but it's all linked to epigenetics and how your genes are expressed.
Wow. And so you have, all three at play in that case, where you have the racial trauma from the identity piece, and the ancestral trauma going through her great grandmother, I think you had mentioned. And then, I mean, it's manifesting in a financial issue because she's not going for certain jobs that could potentially be paying her more or getting her better benefits or whatever that could look like too.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can have a client that comes to you and says that I have trouble like getting the jobs that I want, and you're trying to coach them on negotiations, but then, there's actually a deeper issue at play. So having them ask these questions ask these questions on an interview. When you do this, fix your resume, do all this. That's great. They do all of that. But then when they show up for the interview, internally, they're experiencing all these thoughts and these feelings that lead them to answer the questions a certain way, or to even their body and their posture and just how they present themselves and how they show up on the interview is just off. Even
Mhm.
though they look good on paper, energetically and physically and emotionally, it doesn't align, so they don't get the job.
Yeah. I think it's so important for coaches to understand that there's so much more going on behind the scenes, especially, I think in a lot of coaching approaches, with whether you're a career coach or a relationship coach or relationship, you might think to get a little bit deeper in terms of mindset. But financial coach, a lot of times it can feel very cut and dry, right? Like finances are easy, spend less than you make, like save some. But there's so much holding people back from various mindset aspects. And I think it's important for coaches to be willing to explore, what could be lying underneath the surface, especially if they say, follow this budget and the client doesn't follow the budget. And it's like, why didn't you follow the budget? And it could
Yeah,
be because of a generational thing or a racial thing or anything, like I said, under the surface there.
exactly. Yeah, I actually had a session yesterday for finances. The client had an issue with saving money, and
Mm-hmm.
they make a lot of money monthly, so they could definitely save it. But because of the way that they were raised, in terms of it was just like you just hustled. Money comes quick, money goes fast. Money comes quick,
Yeah.
goes fast. So the hustle mentality never really made way for saving, and they're not, and based on the way that they're raised, and just like the way they live their life and their lifestyle as well, stopping to fill out an Excel sheet is not they're not gonna do it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
they're not gonna do it. I'm not even gonna send this person. But so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna use your emotional thermometer for so then I was able to do emotional energetic shift, and then but they were good at feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really kind of customizing, knowing like these different methods, and being able to customize it so you're able to really hold space and be able to help anyone, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what their background is.
Yeah. If you had to give some coaches, just a couple of tips on how they could best support clients who, aren't doing the thing, or they know that they aren't going to do the thing that is the tangible thing, right? Like do the Excel spreadsheet. How can financial coaches or money mindset coaches best support their clients who might have these deeper trauma experiences?
So for you, a lot of times coaches always kind of get caught on the methods or the
Mhm.
tools, when you should really have a number of tools in your toolbox,
Mhm.
and take the opportunities to either learn, get certified, or get those tools in place. And so now that you have those tools in place, and you know that these tools are able to get certain results for certain people, then when you have your clients, and when you really listen to them and ask certain questions to understand which tools would be beneficial to them to get them the results that they seek, that
Mm.
they truly want. And so you're able to customize it to their the way that they think, because a lot of times a lot of people we're focused on changing how people think, and a lot of other hypnotherapists do this as well. But as someone, for me, I'm neurodivergent, so I was diagnosed with ADHD. So a lot of things for me didn't apply. So I would be like, oh, I can't do this because of the way I think, essentially the way my
Mhm.
brain is. And then you have people that the way that they were raised, their backgrounds. Um, so being able to understand that not everyone is not cut and dry, and that this method is not going to apply, you have to expand your knowledge and expand your understanding of how people think and how people live.
Mm.
So once you understand that, you're able to customize your process to certain people and how they think and how they live. For me, I can hold space with people for people with different backgrounds, but essentially my clients have one thing in common. They are high performers. They're usually the strong friends or the people that people go to for help. So they essentially don't really have anyone they can go to for help. And so
Hmm.
that's where I come in. So I'm not the one that's for people that need extra coddling. I'm for people that are like, look, I have this problem. What's going on, Juliet? Let's solve this. I'm like, all right, let's solve it. So they're really just like, they're really about that. And they know that if they have to, so do I have to get emotional? Yes, you have to get emotional. Okay, so let's get emotional. So, so, like, all right, let's get emotional. So even though my clients have different backgrounds and demographics, essentially at the very core, they're the same. So being okay with having clients that at the core are the same and understanding how you can help them, even though they have at the core, they have these little differences. And so how your tools can help them, depending on the little differences, get them to the result that you want them to have.
Yeah. I love that. I think that really ties into why it's so important to have a specific niche around either who you work with or the problem that you solve, but then also being able to be adaptable as a coach to know that, the one thing might not work. So do you have another tool that you can pull out to use?
Exactly. And that helps you with your confidence and how you show up online, because you know that you can help these certain people. And if someone ever questions your rate, someone ever questions the results, you can say, look, if you are X, X, Y, Z, then I can help you. If
Mhm.
not, then I can. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah. You fit here, we're good to go, but you got to pay me. And this is how much
Yeah,
it's going to be.
exactly. Exactly.
Perfect. Well, Juliet, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom around this topic in our tangible tips round. I'd love to actually go back to your story just briefly because the Wander Wealthy podcast originated as a money podcast where we talked. I mean, we've been talking about money at this point, but where we also share just kind of personal experiences with money. So we would love to know a little bit about your personal money story, maybe the lessons that you learned growing up and how they've shifted, especially as you've gone through and understood that there's financial trauma that exists and all these other traumas and hypnosis and all of your work in brain training essentially. So we'd love to hear about your evolution story as well.
Yeah, so I grew up, my family was upper middle class, so we had money until I was in high school. And just due to some unfortunate business decisions, my father lost the money. So I was kind of like thrown into, and this was right before college. So
Mhm.
when I applied to colleges, I wasn't looking for scholarships or anything or financial aid. So I had to start to learn about the financial aid and that people can, and how to get assistance for college. And then I started to work extra jobs. So one thing that I did have in mind is like I always needed to have a safety net, just because in my mind that money can just go
Mhm.
and you didn't have control over it. Because at the time I didn't know that you could avoid certain things by making better decisions and really checking who you work with and partner with. But in my mind, because it was my father, I said, oh, like money can just go away.
Right.
Like, so I always needed to have 2 to 3 jobs, no matter what.
Mhm.
And I had an issue with committing to certain jobs because they could just go away just like that.
Right.
And so when I left corporate and started my businesses, I ended up having to start 3 businesses because I had that pattern of feeling like, oh, this business could just go away. So I
Yeah.
have these
Can't
other two
just have
businesses.
one.
Can't just have one. And so that led to burnout. And
Right.
so when I did the hypnosis for money, I was able to go back to, and it wasn't just, it turns out it wasn't just high school and that experience um, that affected me, but it all traced back to to 5th grade or 6th grade, where I was at the lunch table and I was with my friends, and there was another girl that brought her lunch out, and she didn't have like a fancy bag or anything. They're like, "Ew, I bet that's store-bought peanut butter," my friend said. And I was just like, and I looked at my stuff and I was like, okay, I have to make sure that we don't have store-bought peanut butter. And
Does it have
so
to be
when my
homemade?
it's like, it's store brand, store brand. Like, if you don't have anyone at home making your peanut butter, I mean, store brand peanut butter, it had to be Jif. So I was in the car, my mom like harassing her, saying, "What type of peanut butter do you have?" And so when she was like, what? And so I just remember like getting out the car, running to the kitchen to make sure that it wasn't store brand peanut butter, it was Jif. And so knowing that, I was like, wow, I really, really cared a lot about what people thought versus if the peanut butter was actually delicious or not.
Right. Crazy.
So yeah. And so I would spend a lot of the money that I made on things to make sure that I looked the part. I looked this part of a successful businesswoman, a successful girl boss. Like, I needed to have the 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn because I needed to show people on Instagram that I have my office space. Even though I work from home, I have an office space and I have my own apartment and I live in Brooklyn. Look at this brownstone. Like, I needed to make sure that I looked the part, not just that I was actually enjoying the business that I was running. So it's like now I'm like in the woods, I have like grass in my hair, but I'm like, hey guys, what's up?
Love it.
Love it. It's like, hey Juliet.
That's amazing.
So now I do the thing. I run my business the way that I want to run it. I don't run it a certain way to impress other people or to show people that I'm a serious business owner. I wake up at 10 in the morning. I don't wake up at like, I'm not like I don't wake up at 5 and I tell people to take a cold shower. Yes, I am a hypnotherapist, but I'm really about telling people what works for you, and especially understanding too that as someone that was diagnosed with ADHD, my brain works differently. So I'm not going to fit the 5-step method or any other thing. So I want people to know that they have permission to be successful their way, to be wealthy in their way. What does wealth mean to you? Is it the ability to be able to just, have time to garden and grow your food? Or is it, is having bougie peanut butter and chocolate wealthy to you? And that's okay too, because it's our time on this planet, and it's up to you to how you want to experience it and how you want to spend it.
Absolutely. Beautiful story, beautiful evolution story. I'd love to ask a couple more money questions just to, break out the taboo, and then we will wrap things up for the day. So which one do I want to ask? My one money question is, what is the best investment that you've made in your business?
My certifications, 100%, because they ended up being not only to give me the knowledge that I needed to run my business, but also the personal development that I needed to be able to really run my business and my practice the way that I wanted.
Yeah, beautiful. If you were handed $3 million today, what would you do with it?
I would get my headquarters space set up for an institute, and hire some coaches to get the training and everything, the training curriculum started for my training school. I would also finish the school and the medical center that we're building in my father's village in Nigeria. And I would also set up my foundation for foster care families to provide additional funding for them so they'd be able to take more kids in.
Mm.
And then I would invest a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I would definitely pay off my and to save it for my my loans. I would definitely would need loans then for my PhD too.
Yes, of course. Got to pay off those student loans. Amazing. All right, we're going to go into the quick and dirty Q&A round. These are just a couple fast-paced questions to wrap up the show. And the first one is my favorite. I would love to know something totally random that you've recently become obsessed with, or you just can't stop thinking about. And it can't be business related. It just has to be like something weird.
Well, it's funny. I've become obsessed with TikTok.
Oh.
And basically like younger Gen Z and how they take in media and like their humor, like what's funny to them, because it's interesting. It's like
what is funny to them?
The really dark humor. Really dark. It's like kind of scary actually, but it's fascinating to me because it's like, you're like 14. Why are you talking about this? Like, why is this so funny to you? You guys are terrible.
Oh my God.
But it's just fascinating to see. And I'm wondering, like, and then for I guess a generation where school shootings are become the norm, they definitely do have a darker sense of humor. So that's what I've been fascinated with right now. Just
yes.
The younger generation,
the Gen Z human experience.
Yes. I'm like, wow. And then wondering like, wow, to be 14 right now, like to be 14 in 2020. Come on, like,
oh my gosh,
that's I can't imagine.
No. What is something you love to do to step away from work?
Walking. I walk without like my phone or headphones now, depending on where I am. But I spent a lot of time in lockdown in central New Jersey in the woods. So just going for walks and hiking has been really great. And so now that's a priority for me wherever I move, that there is some type of outdoor space for me to take those walks.
Yes.
In my head.
Absolutely. What is your favorite account to follow on social media? Your TikTok 14-year-olds?
Yeah, my TikTok 14-year-olds. I on social media, I really like the holistic psychologist on Instagram, and on TikTok there is this princess account, and so the account owner does like recaps of famous princesses.
I would be so interested in that.
Yeah, and it's so cute the way that they it's almost like 90s, like Clueless. The persona that they have is like Cher from Clueless, and they're like, imagine if you were blah blah blah, and it's just interesting, fascinating, like and it's so cute too, short little spurts of information like that.
Yes, when you need to take a break from diving deep into your inner child healing, you go to the princess account.
Yes, exactly.
What is the best piece of financial advice you've been told that you'd like to pass along?
That I should have diversify my investment portfolio, because I immediately thought that I needed to day trade in order to like be a serious investor. But that is not the case.
Nope.
It's like, you're actually making this billionaire more money because they take a percentage off the top every time you day trade. So for me, everyone was like going crazy about it on Twitter. So I was like, oh, I need to learn the candlestick method. I need to do all this. I was like, and when someone's like, no, you don't need to do all that. I'm like, oh, okay. And also that I didn't need to own a home to be like a serious adult.
Yes, love it. Juliet, thank you so much for joining us today. This was such a juicy, wonderful conversation. I've learned so much. I'm sure everyone listening has learned a ton. I'd love for you to tell us where we can find you so we can stalk you, and any resources that you have available to the coaches, whether it's for their individual, financial lives, or for their coaching or for their entrepreneurship. What do you have for us?
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Juliet Obodo. I post a lot of my TikToks on Instagram as reels. But if you are on TikTok, I'm $1 Million Hypnotist on there. And in terms of for coaches, if I was starting out, or if I felt like I needed to kind of expand my practice, check out my free training on inclusive coaching. It's linked in the bio on my Instagram. It's holding space for Black and Brown clients. So it gives you a little bit more information on the 3-dimensional blocks that we spoke about during this session. So I give examples because it was a live training. So I had a financial coach and an intuitive eating coach and different coaches on there that asked me certain questions. So I answered them live so you can get an idea of how we'll incorporate into your practice. And then I also have a brain training program called Sleep Your Way to 100K. So if you're struggling to hit 6 figures, training your brain is a great way to start. And Sleep Your Way to 100K makes it easy because it's not about like journaling or affirmations. It's really about identifying what is blocking you, releasing that block, and staying in alignment with that by simply going to sleep.
Got to check that one out. I can definitely vouch for your holding space training. I went through it in the summer and it's amazing. So thank you for creating that for us.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Juliet. It was such an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. And we can't wait to stalk you in the future.
Thank you. Can't wait to see you all.
And that's a wrap, episode 209 with Juliet Obodo. If you want to check out all of the things that she mentioned, we are going to link those up in the show notes of this week's episode. Head to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 209. And like I said at the end of this interview, I can absolutely vouch for Juliet's trainings. They are so helpful, so educational, and also, I think just bring a new approach to some, I for sure brought a new approach for me and my coaching. And so if you've never even explored what it could look like from different cultural perspectives, from different racial perspectives, from different ancestral perspectives, I definitely recommend signing up for her holding space for Black and Brown clients training. That's one that I went through over the summer, and it totally changed the way that I approach my coaching for all of my clients. Just being a little bit more sensitive and understanding that they come from a very different story and background and upbringing than I personally did, but especially for my Black and Brown clients, and being able to understand a little bit more, or willing to ask and inquire if there's a racial, ancestral, or generational thing that could be holding them back from seeing the change that they really want to see in the work that we do together. So definitely go check all of her stuff out. Thank you so much for joining us again today. If you want to chat about this week's episode, hit me up on Instagram. I'm at Tess_Wicks, and we can message it out from there. Also, if you are looking to get to a better place with your pricing for your coaching, the pricing formula is a revamped version of the Online Coaches Pricing Workbook, and it's only $27 $27, just like the workbook has always been. But in addition to the workbook, you're also getting access to a plug and play pricing calculator and a bunch of trainings and templates that are going to help you make sure that you are getting paid what you need to make for the value of your coaching and so much more. So if you want to jump into the pricing formula, head to wanderwealthy.com/pricing. Again, it's a $27 investment that could completely change the trajectory of your business and your life. So go and check it out. All right. That is all for this week. Until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.